Everyone runs away from pain, dodging the truth it comes with. But you are done with limiting your greatness in the shackles of fear. You see fuel in the fire. You taste ripe fruit in real answers. You move to the drums with wild expression. Enter From Pain to Gain, the podcast about identifying pain so you can ultimately gain health and wealth. Because without identifying a mountain, how can you climb it? Here's your host, Ivan Alpha.
Welcome back to the From Pain to Gain podcast. Today we are resuming the predicament that the stakeholders in affordable housing are going through. The single-family homeowners, particularly mom and pop, that I described before, that's what we're going to jump into today, the solutions that they could do. First of all, they are actually you, if you're that person. Maybe you're not a mom and pop, you're a cousin and a brother or something like this, or even friends that own a property together. What you could do to bring results to the affordable housing sector is actually divest yourself of anything that's not helping that. I'll give you an example. If you own a property that's the mortgage note on it is $250,000, $300,000, I would, and it's a single family home, I would argue it's probably not that profitable. It's a very rare occurrence that you have a single family home that is cash flowing like $4,000 a month, unless that's in a dramatically good neighborhood. So I would recommend you sell it off, because you're probably going to make a nasty amount of money, or at the very least pull equity out of it using a cash out refinance, and use that to buy a couple properties. You really only need, let's say, 20 to 40 grand to buy properties in up and coming markets. So that would be my recommendation to you, just to kind of talk to that perceived lack of capital access part I mentioned in the previous episode. That's what I would recommend. And then also, if you have to, it's a give and take. And I know that what I'm about to say is kind of against direct affordable housing advice, but if you have to raise your rent to cover that, that's something you got to consider. If it's going to mean that you are able to not be in a negative every month or every year, then that's something you got to seriously consider, so that you could be able to leverage your money, your capital, towards buying properties and essentially scaling up affordable housing. That's really the only way to fix this crisis, is make more units available as opposed to just kind of stale. If that means raising the rents on one property to create 5 more, now you see how this addresses that issue, right? And the reason why you may have to raise one on one of them, I'll give you a direct example on my side. I had this property where I did pull out equity from it, and it incurred more debt on the property, which increased the mortgage payment. But with that equity that I pulled out, that cash, I was able to buy not just one door. I bought 3 doors in one swoop. I bought a duplex for $107,000. I bought a single family house for $63,000, and also was able to make improvements on that property I pulled equity out of. So I raised the rents on that one property, but I was able to make 3 more units available at reasonable rates. Another way to look at this from a homeowner perspective is, if you're not making money right now as a family renting the single family home, then rent the rooms out. And I don't always advise this, because it's more active of a management, and you may have neighbors that are upset with you. But ultimately, it is lower risk to have roommates to an entire family, and that's because you'll have always cash flow coming in. I'll give you another example of another property. This property, I wasn't able to rent it to a full family for $2,100 a month. They weren't interested. They weren't in that particular time in 2020. They wanted a higher end renovation. This was a 1930 house that didn't have everything picture perfect. The flooring was kind of inconsistent throughout the house, so I couldn't rent it to a family. However, I did rent out 3 other bedrooms, one at $875, one at $690, the smallest one, and then another at $800. So you see, it came to about the same, and I was able to offset my risk on that mortgage note because I was able to get those rooms rented. And whenever somebody vacated, it was almost immediate. I could get it filled, not affecting my payment at all because I still have money coming in. Versus if I had rented to one family, guess what happens when they decide to move out for any reason? I suddenly lose 1 to 2 months, maybe even 3 months of consistent revenue, increasing my risk by, what would that be, 20-30%? So that's some things to keep in mind as a single family investor. Divest yourself and invest yourself into more properties so that you could help be a solution to the problem, and also help put money in your pockets, because you're ultimately investing to create a sense of freedom for yourself financially and time-wise. You're not in buying real estate because you want to just be changing toilets out every month, right? You're investing in it for your future family's well-being, your current family's well-being. You have to look out for yourself too, because if you can't look out for yourself, then how could you help others? I'll catch y'all in the next episode.